All right, welcome to Algebraic Reasoning. Today we're going to be talking about proportions conversions part 2, and really what we're going to be focusing on is the latter half of that title, which is conversions. So let's talk about conversions and how they relate to proportions. So we have a problem here. We're going to ask to convert 1,950 feet to meters. So we know from our work previously that we're doing a conversion of feet to meters. And so what makes sense here is that if I have 1950 feet, and if I don't know how many meters, I have X meters, right? So it makes sense to set it up this way, and then we can say, well, what does the other side say? The conversion rate is approximately 3.28 feet to 1 meter. And in this particular exercise, it's far too complicated to do this without a calculator, so I'd recommend you using a calculator. So what do we do now? Well, we've talked about a lot of different ways of solving proportions, and here it makes the most sense to just cross multiply. So we're going to end up getting 3.2x equals 1950 times 1. So we obviously are going to get 3.28x equals 1950. And so to solve, all we have to do now is divide by 3.28, and x is going to equal to whatever this is. So this ends up becoming 594.51. And so what is this? Well, remember, notice we had x here is meters, so this is going to be meters. And there's our answer. So this is for a one-time change, this proportion makes sense. But there's another way to approach this. And as you start getting into more complicated scenarios, this tends to be an easier option. So again, I'm going to look at the conversion rate here, and what I'm going to say is I'm going to use something called dimensional analysis. So we're going to start with 1950 feet, and what we do here is I'm just going to multiply across or divide depending upon whether it's the numerator or denominator. So we know that 1 meter is 3.28 feet. And the reason why I'm aligning it as such is so that feet and feet cancel out. We're going to see later on that this becomes increasingly useful as we progress, because if you have to do more than one conversion, it makes it a whole lot easier to solve the problem. So we can also see here that here I had to do a lot of work before I had to end up just dividing. I guess I should be highlighting here 1950 by 3.28. Whereas here, this just shows me I have 1950 on top, 3.28 on the bottom. I'm just going to divide them, and boom, I get the same answer. So this is incredibly important. In the near future, this is incredibly important because you're going to see this all the time in chemistry, but you'll also see in other classes like physics and also in things like stats. Let's move on. Let's try another one. So one thing that I want you always never to worry about is that we will always provide you with the conversion rate. So 1 yard, I guess I should say 1 yard, not 1 yards. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So I'm going to use the second method here, and we're given that we have 7 yards. We know the conversion rate is 1 yard to 3 feet. Again, you should be answering the question of why did I put the yards on the bottom here? And you're seeing it. The answer is that they cancel out. So then we're just left with 7 times 3, which is 21. 21 what? Well, I'm literally dividing out the units, so that I am literally left with just feet. So this is actually 21 feet. So 3 yards is the equivalent of 7 yards is equivalent of 21 feet. Let's look at the next one. So in this next one, it says a student ran a 40-yard dash in 4.4 seconds. At what speed did the student run in miles per hour? So this is a little bit more complicated, but we can handle it fairly simply. We know that we have 40 yards, and now what I'm going to do is, because I do have a unit in the bottom, I'm going to put 4.4 seconds. I'm now going to write it as SEC so that it can really tell that it's seconds. Now we want to convert into miles per hour. So what do we know? Well, here you may be given a couple of different dimensions, right? We knew from before that 1 yard, right, is 3 feet, right? Well, they may also tell you that 50 to 80 feet is 1 mile. Excuse me. And then we may also be given the conversion rate for time. So we may be given something like 60 seconds is equivalent to 1 minute. And 60 minutes is equivalent to 1 hour. So hopefully some of these dimensions are well known. So what am I going to do here? Well, I'm actually going to rewrite this here because I think I'm going to need a little more space. But I'm just going to focus on each part. So I want to end up with miles. So what I do know is what? We know that 1 yard, so yards on top, so yards going to go on the bottom. Notice I'm not even paying attention to seconds. I don't care about seconds. It's 3 feet. And I'm just going to keep it going. Then we know, what about feet? We know 50 to 80 feet is 1 mile. What else do we know? Well, I have seconds, so I know 60 seconds. Notice the seconds on the bottom here, so I got to put the seconds on the top on the other one. Sorry, bottom here, and it goes on the top here. And that's going to be 1 minute. And then we know that 60 minutes is 1 hour. Okay, so we'll notice here, and then the beauty of this is that we can verify that we've done this correctly because yards and yards will cancel. We'll also notice that feet and feet will cancel, so notice I'm left with miles. Okay. Then we notice that seconds and seconds cancel, and then minutes and minutes cancel, and we have hours in the bottom. So whatever this is equal to is going to be the answer. Well, I think first it's important to know how to type this in. So one of the best ways of typing this in is, this is a little known fact, and once you know this, you realize, oh my god, this is so much easier. So if you hit alpha y equals, you get the fraction. And what the fraction allows you to do is you can just type in the numerator on the top and the denominator on the bottom. And that makes it very easy to solve. So once you hit that, I guess I should have hit it, but I didn't. We end up getting 18.595. And this would be miles per hour. Okay? So I think that's the easiest way. If your calculator is not capable, if you hit alpha y equals and it doesn't allow you to do the fraction format, then my advice is type in the numerator in parentheses, then divide by the denominator in parentheses. You have to put it in parentheses in order to get it correct. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And you can see that it's really not that hard to do these kinds of problems. Let's do one more. Walter is planning a vacation. He wants to visit Petrified National Forest in Meteor Crater, Arizona, the 50,000-year-old impact site of a large meteor. On a map with a scale where 2 inches equals 75 miles, the two areas are about 1.5 inches apart. What is the distance between Petrified National Park? Okay, so the relevant information here is that 2 inches equals 75 miles on the map, and they're 1.5 inches apart. So this is actually a lot of words. Some of these words don't matter. The 50,000 doesn't really matter. They're just saying, how do you convert, if 2 inches is 75 miles, how do you convert that to 1.5? So we know we're starting with 1.5, which I'm going to illustrate as 1.5 inches. And on the map, we know 2 inches. So notice 2 will go on the bottom because inches is on the top initially. And so 75 miles will go on the top. And that's it. We know that inches will cancel out. And I'm left with 1.5 times 75, which is 112.5. And this would be miles because the only units left are miles. And that's it. And there's your answer. So, really, conversions are nothing more than an extension of what we've been doing from before. You can solve a lot of them by proportions. Something like number 5 here might be a little bit more complicated, but it's doable. In any case, I hope this makes sense, and I'll see you in the next math video.